The air was thick with the promise of Christmas, a crisp, cold night in Ashland, Kentucky. But for the Gibbons family, the festive cheer would be extinguished by a horror so profound, it would echo through the decades. Imagine the scene: a quiet house, a dusting of snow on the ground, and inside, three teenagers, Robert, Fannie, and their friend Emma, left alone while the adults were away. They were preparing for the holiday, perhaps dreaming of gifts and feasts, unaware that a shadow had fallen across their threshold, a malevolent presence that would turn their home into a tomb and their story into one of the most chilling and enduring mysteries of the American South. This was not just a crime. It was a violation of the season, a brutal, inexplicable act that shattered the peace of a small town and left a permanent scar on the history of true crime. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. Also, coming soon to Substack. The Gibbons home sat just outside the main settlement of Ashland, a place of quiet industry and close-knit community in 1881. Robert, 17, and Fannie, 15, were typical lively teenagers. Their friend, Emma Carico, 17, was staying with them, a common practice in the days leading up to the holidays. On the evening of December 23rd, the adults had left the children at home, a seemingly innocent decision that would lead to unimaginable tragedy. The house, usually a beacon of warmth, was about to become the stage for a nightmare. Sometime in the early hours of Christmas Eve, a terrifying glow was spotted in the distance. The Gibbons house was engulfed in flames. Neighbors and volunteers rushed to the scene, battling the blaze with buckets and desperation, but the fire was too fierce. By the time the inferno was brought under control, the house was a smoldering ruin, and the worst fears of the community were realized. It was initially assumed to be a tragic accident, a faulty chimney, a dropped lamp, but the grim discoveries within the wreckage would quickly dispel any notion of a simple misfortune. As the debris cooled, searchers began the heartbreaking task of sifting through the ashes. They found the remains of the three teenagers, but the state of the bodies told a story far more sinister than a house fire. Robert, Fannie, and Emma had not died in the blaze. They had been brutally murdered before the fire was set. Robert's body was found near the front door, his skull crushed. Fannie and Emma were discovered in a back room, both having suffered similar savage injuries. The fire, it became clear, was not the cause of death, but a deliberate attempt to conceal the horrific crime. The sheer brutality of the attack sent shockwaves through Ashland and quickly became national news. The victims were young, innocent, and murdered just hours before Christmas. The press dubbed it the Ashland Tragedy, and the public demanded justice. The initial investigation was hampered by the destruction of the crime scene, but the focus quickly shifted to three men: George Ellis, William Neal, and Ellis Craft. All three were arrested shortly after the fire, and the community's hunger for a culprit was immense. The investigation was a chaotic affair, marked by intense public pressure and a lack of modern forensic techniques. The case took a dramatic turn when George Ellis made a confession, implicating himself, Neal, and Craft in the murders, suggesting the motive was robbery and sexual assault. The trials that followed became a national spectacle. Ellis was the first to be tried, convicted, and sentenced to hang. However, the legal process was far from over, and the public's impatience was reaching a boiling point. The case against the men was marred by sensationalism and the volatile atmosphere of the time. While Ellis was awaiting his appeal, Ellis Craft was brought to trial. The threat of mob violence was constant, and it is said Ellis was dragged from his cell and lynched. Ellis Craft was convicted and, after a series of appeals and delays, was hanged on October 12, 1883, in Grayson, Kentucky. William Neal was the last to face his fate. After his own conviction and a lengthy legal battle, Neal was also legally hanged on March 27, 1885, in Grayson, Kentucky. The fate of George Ellis remains the most debated part of the tragedy. While some reports claim he was lynched by a mob, others suggest his conviction was overturned on appeal and he was quietly released, disappearing from the historical record. What is certain is that the trials and executions of Craft and Neal brought a grim, final chapter to the public's demand for justice. The legacy of the Ashland Murders is one of profound sorrow and enduring mystery. It serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of life and the terror that can strike even in the most peaceful of settings. The tragedy inspired local legends and was the subject of countless newspaper articles, ballads, and even a book. The victims Robert, Fannie, and Emma became symbols of lost innocence, their story a cautionary tale passed down through generations. The identity of the true killer, or killers, remains a subject of intense debate among historians and true crime enthusiasts to this day. The events of that cold December night in 1881 fundamentally changed Ashland. The community was forced to confront the reality of evil in their midst, and the memory of the 3 young lives lost just days before Christmas became a permanent, somber fixture in the town's collective memory. The case highlights the limitations of 19th-century law enforcement and the dangers of a justice system driven by public hysteria rather than concrete evidence. It is a story that demands to be remembered, not just for the horror of the crime, but for the enduring human quest for truth and closure. The Ashland Murders remain a chilling example of a historical case, a dark stain on the holiday season. The house is gone. The witnesses are long deceased. But the question persists. Who extinguished the lives of Robert, Fannie, and Emma, and why? The silence of the grave and the ashes of the fire hold the secret. A secret that has been kept for over a century, making this one of the most compelling and tragic cases in American history. Thanks for watching. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe for future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.